Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 269, Metastasis. Not even the ban imposed by the imperial court could stop the gossip from spreading like wildfire around Chu capital. Everyone in the streets and alleys, pleasure quarters, and tea houses were all discussing the female emperor's birth origins. The city gates were sealed off, but the rumor still made its way to the 8 cities and was now spreading to Zhuexi. Have the capital command troops seal the gates as soon as possible, Kong Qiu said during the discussion in Mingli Hall. The news must not be indiscriminately spread. The Imperial Academy caused such a commotion that the capital command troops had to intervene. Chengbi is a long-time minister. He knows how to handle the situation. Xiao Chengbi kneeled before the emperor's desk. The new official robe he was wearing fitted him, but his hair was all white, and he did not look at all like a military general. His voice was very hoarse as he said, "It's not the first time that the students have stirred up trouble. It's hard to get a right handle on it. My fear is that it might just end up adding fuel to the fire whenever the soldiers intervene. Even so, you have to intervene." Sen Yu stood up. He was an imperial censor, so he naturally understood the stakes involved. Public opinions can obscure the truth, and repeated slanders can bring about one's ruin. Li Jianting did not sleep last night. She sat behind her table and drank strong tea, finishing it in a few mouthfuls. "I have a clear conscience, but the way the rumors started this time is suspicious. Who exactly wrote that paper? Does the Ministry of Justice still not have a clue?" "It's being copied all over now," Kong Qiu said. "We don't know whose handwriting it is. It's true that there is nowhere to trace the handwriting." Shui Zhuo looked at Sen Yu. "But Your Excellency Sen, please take a look at this article again carefully." Sen Yu was burning up with anxiety when he saw this piece of paper last night, so where would he have the time to look it over carefully? Upon hearing Shui Zhuo say so, however, he took over the article and read it again. After looking at it for a while, he suddenly jolted to his feet and took a few steps while holding the article in hand. The article that made paper expensive in Chu capital a few years ago was the Lamentation of Hashi. This article seemed to be from the same hand as the Lamentation of Hashi. Kong Qiu vaguely remembered such a person and said hesitantly, "Is it that? The eloquent brush Gao Xinwei?" Sen Yu turned back. "It's Gao Zhongxiang." Gao Zhongxiang had grandiose ambitions but little skill. He served as Han Jin's aide in Chu capital and caused the 8 great training divisions to end up getting trounced by Xiao Qi Ye. Han Cheng meant to deal with him at that time, and Gao Zhongxiang struggled to keep himself alive in Dan City. Who could have expected him to eventually throw in his lot with Shen Zequan? The top priority right now is not only to stifle the rumors but also to convince Commander-in-Chief Qi to mobilize troops as soon as possible, Kong Qiu said. Shen Zequan has the 120,000 garrison troops of Zongbo in his grasp. No matter what, we cannot fight them head-on when it comes to military strength. Zhen have already issued an edict to Qidong, Li Jianting said, telling the Prince of Dongli to send troops across Tianfei Watchtower to launch a direct assault on Deng province. Zongbo had no reinforcements. Shen Zequan dispatched the Dun province garrison troops over to Tse province and left the imperial cavalry to guard Duan province, leaving Fan province and Deng province inevitably empty. "There's no need to panic just yet," Chen Zhen said. "The Zongbo garrison troops are newly established, too. Shen Zequan only has the Dun province and Tse province garrison troops available for use. He doesn't even dare to mobilize the Cha province garrison troops rashly. Chengbi, the 40,000 capital. Command troops are at your disposal. We are practically evenly matched with Shen Zequan. I'm worried that Shen Zequan still has something up his sleeve." Li Jianting rose to help up Xiao Chengbi. "All I can do now is entrust Chu capital to Viceroy Xiao. This old subject shall sacrifice my life to repay your Majesty's kindness." Xiao Chengbi limped. "There is no time to lose. This old subject will head out of the city tonight on horseback and hurry over to Dan City, but before I leave, I have a favor to ask. As Li Jianting looked at Xiao Changbi's aged face, she suddenly felt a surge of emotions for some unknown reason. Supporting Xiao Changbi by the arm, she said in an emotional moment, "This battle is dangerous. Regardless of success or failure, as long as I am still here, I will definitely redress the injustice that Viceroy Xiao has suffered. This old subject is already old. It's all because of the favor that your Majesty showed me that I can still do my utmost for my country. As for the rest, I will leave it to fate." Xiao Changbi's expression was grave and solemn. This old subject would like to request to open up the Chunquan Battalion Armory. Li Jianting was slightly taken aback. "Chunquan Battalion is equipped with firearms," Xiao Changbi said. "This old subject would like to take this batch of firearms with me. You have my approval." Li Jianting promptly turned around and called for Feng Quan to bring the wine over. She personally poured a cup for Xiao Changbi. "I shall wait in Chu capital for Viceroy Xiao to return in victory." ******. Gao Zhongxiang set down his brush and said to Yao Wenyu, "In Yuan Zuo's opinion, how will Chu capital fight this battle? First, quell the rumors, then persuade Commander-in-Chief Qi to mobilize troops." Yao Wenyu turned his wheelchair to the other end of the table and spread out the map, "and have Xiao Changbi guard Dan City. Zuo will certainly make an issue of his lordship's background. He wants a justifiable reason to dispatch troops, too. There are indeed 40,000 garrison troop soldiers still left in Fan Province and Deng Province, but they are all new recruits, so we can only wait for Huo Lingyun to rush over to provide reinforcement." Zhou Gui was a little worried as he sighed with emotion. "Zuo returned the fields to the commoners. He has an excellent reputation in Dan City. If the imperial court were to bring up Shenwei, it'd be hard for us to counterattack." Kong Ling then said, "They bestowed beneficence upon the 3 cities, but our benefactions extend to the 6 prefectures. His lordship's contributions in the 3 territories are all tangible accomplishments. It's not something the new emperor can compare to. We were also the ones who joined forces with Libei and Kedong to win over the Hashi River's line of defense. Second Master has also made illustrious military achievements in bringing peace and stability to the Bianjun Commandery and advancing east into the desert. Zongbo and Libei are unbeatable in terms of achievements." Shenzhequan sat alone in the principal seat, looking pensive. "There is one more matter that I can't figure out. The issue of commoners' fields in the 3 cities has just been settled." Zhou Gui pointed at Chu capital. "However, the number of commoners forced to leave their homes for Zongbo is still increasing instead of decreasing. What is the reason for this? The noble clans have had jurisdiction over the 8 cities for a long time. The so-called encroachment on the commoners' fields doesn't just refer to the 8 great clans. The reason why the Grand Mentor implemented the census register system back then was exactly to curb any attempts at field encroachment. The 3 cities of Dan City, Wu City, and Chuan City had indeed straightened out their field taxes, but the sum of field tax was also forcibly imposed and collected by the Pan, Han, and Fei clans. In other words, there are still many bandits who are affiliated with the noble clans but are not of noble birth themselves, stealing the commoners' fields, and they continue to make the common folks pay for this shortfall." Yao Wenyu looked at Shenzhequan. "Since the noble clans have the reputation of being of chronic ailment and deeply rooted malady, they cannot be easily eradicated. Yuan Zhou has hit the nail on the head." Shenzhequan lifted the lid to open up the teacup and covered it again. "It's not hard to implement the census register. The real difficulty lies in accounting for the yearly cumulative total, which requires internal regulations of government affairs and supervision in the data entry and submission of the reports. The selection of local officials in the various areas is also a top priority. Chu capital has been caught up in the tussles between political factions in recent years, and those from the noble clans and those of humble origins have each suffered losses. By the time the new emperor ascended to the throne, the imperial court was empty and the key positions, vacant. Even if Shuiziaozuo does his utmost to turn the tide and save the desperate situation, he cannot do it alone. Chu capital can't even pay the monthly salaries now, Kong Ling said, and they still have to bear the military expenses of the 40,000 strong capital command troops. The longer it stretches on, the more strapped they will be. The commoners can't prosper and the silver treasury in Shuiziaozuo's hands will not make it past winter this year. At this stage, Shen Zequin said, we are fighting a war of words. Let's see how Chu capital responds. The bamboo blinds rose gently, and Fei Sheng entered with a letter in hand. Master, a letter from second master has arrived. Seeing as it was already late, Kong Ling rose with Zhou Gui and Gao Zhongxiang in tow and said to Shen Zequin, it's already late today, and your lordship ought to retire for the night too, so we shall take our leave first. Shen Zequin waited for them to leave one after another before opening Xiao Qiye's letter. The moment the paper was spread open, a few tiny paper-folded wolves dropped out. My wife, treat this letter as you would my person. Shen Zequin brushed his fingers over this line. This expedition is less dangerous. The armored cavalry has already arrived at Mozanchuan. We can reach Amuir native place in the 11th month. With the Huiyan tribe as an example of the benefits of the mutual frontier trade, I have drawn over 3 desert tribes to our side, hoping to exhaust the combined strength of the 3 tribes to attack the bald vultures together. The provisions are ample and the sweet potatoes are filling. The only thing, though, is that Lu Guangbai is way too noisy. If I can emerge victorious in one battle, I will be able to rush back home to spend the new year with you. Miss you. Shen Zequin looked at the bottom, where Xiao Qiye had used charcoal to scrawl a dark, starry night sky. Shen Zequin read the few short lines repeatedly for a very long time. The candlelight shone upon the paper-cut window decoration. The night in Tse province could still be considered refreshingly cool, but autumn was already setting into the east of the Hashi River. Mozanchuan, or the 3 rivers of the desert, were all barren shores with harsh sandstorms. He wondered if Xiao Qiye would be thinner when he returned. All the thousands upon thousands of words Shen Zequin had to say dissolved into that phrase, miss you. There was another official letter sealed with the commander's seal behind Xiao Qiye's letter from home. Shen Zequin opened it to find that it was a letter from Lu Guangbai. ******. Several days later, the sound of horses' hooves broke the silence. The cold night had not yet awoken. The man who reined in the horse produced his own authority token and shouted at the soldiers guarding the camp. Tally of urgency from the express dispatch station. Hurry up and open the gates. I want to see the Prince of Dongli. Qizuyan already had a premonition when she draped her clothes around herself. She lifted the curtains and stepped out, where she saw the authentication token from the express dispatch station against the cobalt blue sky. Military report? She asked. Military report. The official from the express dispatch station dismounted his horse and kneeled to pay his obeisance. In a loud voice, he said, the Ministry of War has specially authorized the Prince of Dongli, Qizuyan, to dispatch troops to Deng province to crush the Zongbo rebels immediately. Qizuyan pursed her lips lightly. She did not immediately answer. The official from the express dispatch station then stood up and lifted the tally high. As per the imperial decree, Her Majesty has appointed the Prince of Dongli to dispatch troops. There are 40,000 capital command troops right in Dan City, Qizuyan said. Why is Xiaochangbi not making a move? Tianfei Watchtower is a key natural barrier of Great Zhou. Each time my troops pass through, it will deplete several tens of thousands in military salaries. The Grand Secretariat has already given an official reply in writing to the Ministry of War. Qidong's military salaries will arrive in a few days. The official had an oblong face shape. He was formerly Xiaochangbi's old subordinate and he had come to ask Qizuyan to deploy troops. He continued, neither obsequious nor supercilious, the ambitions of the band of traitorous rebels are all too clear. Viceroy Xiao's stationing of his troops in Dan City is, in fact, to guard Chu capital. The traitor from the Shen clan is presently diverting his troops to Tse province. His back is empty. As long as the Prince of Dongli sends troops, you can attack them from the front and the rear simultaneously with Viceroy Xiao to besiege and annihilate the rebels. Qi Zuyan did not answer. The official pressed in a step closer. He wore a yellow belt bestowed by the emperor around his waist, along with a renowned blade bestowed by the emperor. Qi Wei promptly strode forth to stand before Qi Zuyan and berated, "Remove your blade in front of the prince. My blade was bestowed by the Son of Heaven." The official was not in the slightest bit afraid as he said coldly, "The rebels are threatening Chu capital and they have already forced their way before the emperor, so why is the Prince of Dongli unwilling to deploy troops to come to Her Majesty's aid?" He abruptly yanked off the yellow belt. "The Qi clan takes orders from the Son of Heaven, you are a subject of Great Zhou, so Qi Zuyan, why are you not heeding the order?" Qi Wei, having already lost his temper, snapped, "My lord's honorable name is not something for you to speak of." The official stood tall and dauntless. "The state is in imminent danger. If the Prince of Dongli doesn't dispatch troops, Great Zhou will perish. When that time comes, the emperor is not the emperor, and the subject ceases to be the subject. You and I will merely be the slaves of a fallen empire. There will be no status and rank to speak of." Qi Wei was enraged. "Take him down. Stand down." Qi Zuyan suddenly raised her hand, and the overcoat on her shoulders slid to the ground, revealing her regular robes and zuju at the side of her waist. "Leave the tally behind," she said. "I've got the message." Under the tense atmosphere, the official took the tally and presented it to Qi Zuyan with both hands. He bowed again and said in a quiet voice, "This humble official shall wait in Dan City for the Prince of Dongli to return in triumph." Having said that, he turned around and got on his horse. Without even drinking a drop of water, he spurred his horse on and set off on his return journey. This man is truly rude. Qi Wei took 2 steps after him and looked back at Qi Zuyan. "Commander-in-Chief, why do you have to put up with it? Chu capital is the one begging us to send troops right now. He's a decent official, composed in the face of danger and calm in the face of crisis. You should learn from him." Qi Zuyan flipped over the tally for a look. "We have been raising our horses and training our troops to this day, and all the food consumed has to be repaid. So we are really going." Qi Wei followed Qi Zuyan closely. "Second master is away on an expedition. Attacking Zongbo now is to exploit another's plight. Exploitation is still a thing when you're fighting a war." Qi Zuyan turned around to enter the military tent. She set the token on the table and looked at the map hanging on the wall. "Shenzhequan lacks generals now. There's only a Huo Lingyun who can temporarily stand in as Deng province's commander, but the soldiers under his commands are not the best quality. 20,000 soldiers will be enough for us to fight Deng province. I just fear," Qi Wei started. "Tantai who can't be in 2 places at once," Qi Zuyan continued, "and Shenzhequan has still yet to recover from his injuries. Once I make my move, Jiming will come." With the interruption from Qi Zuyan, Qi Wei forgot what he was going to say and instead exclaimed in surprise, "The heir apparent, I mean, the prince is going to return to the battlefield. Xiao Qiye left his beloved there." Qi Zuyan cast a glance at Qi Wei. "Do you think he'd dare to leave without a contingency plan? Libei only has 30,000 armored cavalry left." Qi Wei started to worry for Xiao Jiming. The Prince of Libei is still in recuperation. If something were to happen to him, won't the princess consort of Libei drown Qidong in her tears? Qi Wei could already imagine what Lu Yizi would look like as she pounded Qi Zuyan with her fists and bawled herself a river with her eyes shut. "Glacier armored cavalry, Xiao Jiming," Qi Zuyan said. "He's the Xiao Jiming who sped through the snowy night and crossed the river to head down south to launch a sudden assault on the Bianchi cavalry. Even if Libei had only 5,000 armored cavalrymen left, he would still dare to come, let alone with 30,000 of them. Qi Wei was already at a loss as to what to do. He would not dare to be half-hearted when fighting battles with the Bianchi cavalry, but with Liu Bei. "Commander-in-chief," he said, "if we really come to blows, we will both suffer casualties. Leaving aside the troops who will sustain injuries and deaths, the common folk in both territories will also be in a state of panic and unease. Deng province did a good job straightening out the grain fields this year. We cross over, and people will still have to starve to death next year. Aren't the officials from the capital all capable? Let them convince Shenzhen with their eloquence. The way it seems to me, Shenzhen will not move as long as the capital command troops remain in place. Then you have to understand one thing." Qi Zuyan turned around and said in all seriousness, "If we don't fight this battle, you and I will be the slaves of a fallen empire. In the future, you and I will be subjects of a former reign, and the empire will see a change of surname thereafter. If we do not bow down to Shenzhen, then we will have to kneel to Xiao Qi Ye." Qi Wei was struck dumb. Since time immemorial, loyalty and righteousness have struggled to coexist. Qi Zuyan looked at the map again. And this is a perfect example. The sounds of footsteps suddenly rang out at the door. Qi Wei turned his head back for a look. "I heard an official from the express dispatch station has arrived." Hua Xianji was in the midst of lifting the flap to enter. She was plainly dressed in white, mourning clothes, the contrast of which accentuated her delicate, dainty features. "Ayin, is that a military report?" *******. Before Xiao Changbi left Chu capital, Li Jianting had Feng Quan pack his bags for him. In truth, however, Xiao Changbi had nothing to pack. All he brought along was a broadsword. Feng Quan washed Xiao Changbi's hair for him, then tied his hair into a top knot before the bronze mirror. Xiao Changbi's white hair was very rough. He said, "I can't grow it out when going onto the battlefield to kill the enemies. Might as well cut off some." So, Feng Quan had a junior eunuch bring a razor, which he used to cut Xiao Changbi's hair short. "Her Majesty asked you to see me off." Xiao Changbi's voice had gone all hoarse from the poison he took. It was not damaged to the point that he could not speak, but his voice was thoroughly ruined. "It is, in itself, a great kindness." Soft shaving sounds came from the razor. Feng Quan answered expressionlessly, "It is as father says. This one parting stretches eternally." Xiao Changbi looked at Feng Quan in the mirror. "Us father and son won't see each other again. Father is composed and steady in directing military operations. You will not lose." Feng Quan carefully shaved Xiao Changbi's hair. "Furthermore, the firearms of the Chun Quan battalion are all in father's hands. They are enough to give Shenzhen a headache." "He is the Grand Mentor's successor," Xiao Changbi said. "He is a formidable and ambitious man. The Grand Mentor might have been able to devise strategies from a command tent and score victories without a trace." White hair rustled as they fell to the ground. Feng Quan wiped the blade with his thumb. The side of Xiao Changbi's neck was right within reach. "But he is afflicted with a disease that all intelligent people possess, and that is, conceit." Xiao Changbi's blinded eye moved with great effort. Feng Quan kept away the razor and swiftly rolled Xiao Changbi's hair up to secure it in place. Xiao Changbi sat quietly. The rays of the setting sun penetrated the window and drew a boundary line between Feng Quan and him. Dust motes floated in the air. "In the next life," Xiao Changbi said, "I will be your son." After a moment of silence, Feng Quan answered, "Spare me." Chu capital took half a month to draft up the official proclamation and public denunciation, and the various yamens put it up in public notice. Other than the defeat of Shen Wei's troops, there were also mentions of Shenzhen's crimes, such as possessing his own troops under his own banner and forming a faction to plot a rebellion. The imperial court has shown kindness to the Shen clan, but the remaining survivor of the Shen clan proclaimed himself king in lands he seized with the intention of plotting a rebellion. The junior Yamen official struck the gong and shouted to those illiterate commoners. He is now gathering bandits and pressing in towards Dan City. He's a rebel and a traitor. From today onward, the capital command troops will patrol the city and impose a curfew. No one is allowed to go out after the hour of U. The capital command troops, equipped with superior arms of the finest quality, ran around the streets and markets regardless whether it's day or night. All the tea houses and wine taverns where rumors were the most prevalent were closed down. Anyone who gathered in groups was arrested and imprisoned for slander and libel. In no time, everyone was thrown into a state of alarm. The sound of stringed and woodwind instruments, as well as reed pipes, no longer permeated the most prosperous Donglong Street. ******. The ascension of the emperor is neither backed by the imperial genealogy records nor authenticated in writing in Cinnabar. Gao Zhongxiang stepped on a rock and lifted the article high. The sun was blistering hot, and his face was all drenched in sweat. It's hard to believe things based on Xue Xiaozuo's words alone. If she is truly Prince Jin's legitimate descendant of lawful birth, then may I ask, where is the Cinnabar seal? Prince Jin is without an heir. If he has a daughter of lawful birth, how could he have allowed her to end up wandering amongst the common people? Ever since the great imperial ancestor ascended to the throne, Great Zhou has had 21 sovereigns, and there has never been an emperor with such dubious origins in hundreds of years. Is the one everyone kneels to today a sovereign of the Li clan, or a powerful minister of the Xue clan? Gao Zhongxiang wiped his sweat, his tone somber. Court politics were undermined during the reign of Yanji, its army was defeated during the reign of Xiand. The Li clan is held captive by the noble clans. They no longer have any grace to extend. They can't even fend for themselves. ******. An urgent flurry of footsteps sounded in the office compound, while the candlelight in Mingli Hall burned through the night without end. The express dispatch station reported back that the Prince of Dongli meant to send troops. The mobilization of soldiers and horses was no small matter. Chen Zhen had already been here for 4 days, he even had his meals and slept here. But there is no military report as to the exact timing for departure and arrival. We have no idea, too. The grains were all put together in haste. We can't wait, and we can't let it drag on. Issue a tally of urgency. If Qi Zuyan doesn't get into motion, then issue it to Qi Shiu. Kong Qiu sat in seat, so anxious was he that he was fuming. If we can make it a quick battle in Deng province, the Biwen military drill grounds will definitely withdraw troops and turn back to provide reinforcements. Xiao Changbi will then be able to go into battle and follow up with an attack. But the imperial court has over 10 riders, and yet Gao Zhongxiang still managed to get the upper hand. Is there no one in the Hanlin Academy and Imperial Academy who can contend with him? The Grand Secretary was in a rage, and the hall fell silent for a moment. All the officials standing under the eaves with their hands by their sides kept their mouths shut. Li Jianting's birth origin was dubious to begin with. At first, it was said that she was Prince Jin's legitimate daughter, but even so, she ought to have a genealogy record, or if not, at least Prince Jin's last words in writing or Cinnabar seal. When Xue Xiaozuo verified the identity of the heir apparent, the proof he had produced was in the handwriting of Emperor Tianchen, Li Jianheng. The bright yellow satin-covered folded book was indeed affixed with the imperial seal, but at that time, Li Jianheng was already dead, and the long-serving officials from the Grand Secretariat all knew nothing of the matter. And now, Zongbo was insisting that Li Jianting was definitely not of the Li clan's bloodline. Although the various regions strictly prohibited private discussions of state affairs, the rumors persisted. Even worse, there were also speculations about the female emperor and Xue Xiaozuo. This battle is a tough one to fight, Sen Yu said. It'd be far better to go give the Prince of Dongli another nudge. *****. Xiao Changbi bumpily hobbled his way up the city wall. He could not see Tse province from here, only the continuous stretch of the Dun province garrison troops' military tents. Tantai, who had complied with Shenzequan's order and was approaching Dan City amidst both parties' increasingly heated cussing. Tantai, who was originally Xiao Qiye's general but was later transferred by Xiao Qiye to Zongbo, where he began to guard Dun province. That Shenzequan could successfully defend Duan province was, in part, thanks to Tantai Hu. The official following beside Xiao Changbi's side was the same official who went to Qidong to deliver the tally of urgency. He was the son of a former subordinate of Xiao Changbi. His name was Su Yu. After the Xiao clan had their properties sealed off and family members executed, he was dismissed from his military rank. He stayed in the relay station where he eked a living in a sinecure. He knew the generals from the various regions like the back of his hand. Xiao Changbi shifted his crippled leg and moved closer to the battlements. What is this person's relationship to Tantai Long? He's Tantai Long's younger brother. Tantai Long is steady and reliable. If he takes after his elder brother's nature, Xiao Changbi looked at the boundless horizon where dusk was creeping up on, then he probably won't make a rash move. Shenzequan won over the 6 prefectures by playing the benevolence and righteousness card, Su Yu said, and now he is taking the stand that the Li clan is malevolent, and the prefectural lord has just cause, so naturally, he would not dare to let Tantai Hu attack the city, lest he gives the others grounds for gossip. However, the way this humble official sees it, the Dun province garrison troops intend to encircle and block off the city gates to deplete Dan City's granary in an attempt to force Viceroy Xiao to open the gates. The treasury is empty and the army is short on military grains. Besieging the city to force a surrender is indeed an excellent strategy. Xiao Changbi walked along the battlements. How is Tantai Hu's management of his troops? Su Yu looked out of the city and thought for a moment. Relaxed and free-handed, he answered. Tantai Hu ate his meal in the camp. Ever since he had arrived at the Biwen military drill grounds, Yu Xiaoze had been eating and staying with him. It was already dark now. Anything unusual during the night patrol? Tantai Hu asked. Lu Kong, who was standing at the entrance of the tent, answered, all is well. General, that Xiao Changbi was so scared upon hearing of your mighty name that he doesn't even dare to step out of the city gates. I heard that Xiao Changbi is a cripple. Tantai Hu cleaned out his meal in several mouthfuls. I wonder if he dares to fight on horseback with us. They want to defend the city. With Yu Xiaoze present, Lu Kong watched his words and merely said, if there are any orders from his lordship, I'll immediately report it to you, so please take a rest, General. The camp was buzzing with mosquitoes, so the tent flap was lowered. Yu Xiaoze soaked his feet in hot water and asked Tantai Hu in a quiet voice, I can see that this person is quick-wit and bright. How come I didn't see him on my last tour on inspection? I hadn't promoted him yet at that time, Tantai Hu said. He has had a hard life. He comes from a farming household in Deng province. During the 4th year of the Xiand era, his family was slaughtered by the Biancha cavalry, and he mixed in with the Fan province bandits for a period of time. Later, he joined my troops. I guess he can be said to have turned over a new leaf. Meticulous as always, Yu Xiaoze thought about matters as he wiped his feet. At night, they slept on separate beds. Tantai Hu's snores were deafening, but unexpectedly, when the hour of Zhou came around, his stomach started acting up. Tantai Hu initially thought that the food was unclean. He was in such pain that his face had turned white. It was only until the latter half of the night that he felt something amiss. Outside the tent, Lu Kong reported with urgency, General. The brothers are all having the runs. Clutching his stomach, Tantai Hu slipped on his shoes and lifted the tent flap to hear moans everywhere around the camp. The latrines were all crowded full of people. His expression grew slightly grim as he said, summon the military medics first, then send someone to convey the news immediately to Tse province. Yu Xiaozhe was half dead sleeping, but he crawled up from bed on hearing the commotion. As he draped his clothes over him, he walked out and exclaimed in shock, "What's happening? Someone poisoned." Before Lu Kang could finish his words, the sound of vomiting rang out from the sides as all the soldiers began to throw up. With such similar symptoms, what else could it be if not a case of poisoning? Tan Tai, whose heart skipped in alarm as he realized that there was a spy among his soldiers. "Summon the military medics, quick!" Tan Tai, who commanded with urgency. Su Yu was already asleep when he heard the scout reporting back. He did not even have the time to wash up when he went to summon Xiao Changbi. As he led Xiao Changbi up the city gate, he said, "Viceroy Xiao, the garrison troops are in chaos." Xiao Changbi looked at the bright lights in the far distance and heard human voices. Su Yu was delighted. The scout reported back that everyone from top to bottom in the garrison troops ate something bad and are now suffering from stomach upsets, with bouts of vomiting and diarrhea. That Tan Tai, who is now burning with anxiety, like an ant on a hot pan. Being prudent, Xiao Changbi said, "Is it true? If it's a trap to lure the enemies, there may still be an ambush." Tan Tai, who has the runs, too. Everyone in the campground is down for the count. It doesn't seem to be fake. Besides, Zongbo has no reinforcements. He would never use 20,000 garrison troops just to put on a show. Su Yu held his blade in his hand, feeling a surge of emotions in a rare moment. "Viceroy Xiao, once we emerge victorious in this battle and return home in triumph, the injustices we suffered will be redressed." Xiao Changbi's breathing was slightly heavy. He braced himself against the battlements, still hesitating. The junior soldier at the bottom hurried up the steps and cupped his fists at Xiao Changbi. "Viceroy Xiao, the express dispatch station's tally of urgency. The Prince of Dongli has mobilized troops." Xiao Changbi narrowed one of his eyes and tilted his head back to roar with laughter under the firelight. He suddenly turned back and said, "Heaven is helping me. Lead the horse over." Tan Tai, who was down with a bad case of vomiting and diarrhea too. His stomach was churning, and his legs were trembling. There were not enough military medics to go around. The erected shack was packed full of soldiers lying down. Even Lu Kang had vomited a few times. "Is the message sent?" Tan Tai, who asked with a ghastly pale face. Yu Xiaozhe smacked his thigh. "How'd I know?" At this moment, it was tough to even form a squad that could still stand on their feet, let alone lined up in formation. Tan Tai, who extinguished half of the torches in the camp to put on a show of normalcy, but his eyelids suddenly twitched as he kept having the nagging feeling that something was going to happen tonight. Lu Kang said to Tan Tai, who, "The ones transporting military grains are all our own men, so nothing will go awry on the way. We have been eating rice and noodles for a month without incident, but something just had to go wrong tonight of all times." Tan Tai, who said through gritted teeth, "There has to be a spy from Chu capital amongst the troops." Although Yu Xiaozhe tried his best to divert the topic, he was the only one in the entire camp who was still fine. Cold sweat broke out on his back. It had already occurred to him what the other party's intent was. The gears whirled in his mind. His expression unchanging, he said, "Let's not lose our heads now. If by any chance..." He had yet to finish speaking when he heard the sound of hooves from the western side of the camp galloping their way over. The soldiers on the watchtower struck the drum to sound the alarm. In an instant, the words "enemy attack" reverberated through the entire camp. Lu Kang let loose an exclamation and cried out in a fluster, "General!" Tan Tai, who abruptly jerked to his feet, his chest heaving. Then he yanked up the soldiers who were in slightly better condition and shouted, "Get into formation." The capital command troops had light cavalry as their vanguards, so they could launch a surprise attack and gather intelligence on the facts of the matter. If the Dun province garrison troops were indeed laying a trap to lure the enemies in, they would be able to retreat immediately. The light cavalry of the capital command troops charged their way to the western side. The drum on the watchtower was pounded with such intensity it was about to break. Tang Jiuqing raised his arm and hollered, "Archers!" The Dun province garrison troops often had to face off the Bianchi cavalry, and in order to deal with the Bianchi cavalry, Tang Jiuqing had the bows the troops used swapped from long bows to the strong bows used by the Libai armored cavalry. The results had been remarkable the few times they were used in battles, but right now, soldiers who could still draw a bow were few and far between. The bows and arrows failed to wear down the light cavalry. The other party already knew of the issue and frailness of the Dun province garrison troops. The infantrymen behind charged swiftly with shields in hands, their armors glinting in the moonlight. These were the finest gears of the 8 great training divisions. The campground's wooden fences were knocked down. Even if the garrison troops were to run now, it was too late. Tang Jiuqing drew his blade to face the enemies head-on, but before he could get to the infantry of the capital command troops, the light cavalry rushed right into his sight. He caught a whiff of gunpowder, and his heart went cold as he rolled to the ground. The blunderbuss instantly blasted into action, sending sparks flying in all directions. Tang Jiuqing covered his head and dodged, but both his arms were stinging in searing pain. He turned his arms over and gasped in alarm. By grace of imperial magnanimity, the imperial court will not pursue the heinous crimes of all those willing to surrender tonight. Xiao Changbi spurred his horse into the camp. The 300,000 strong Qidong garrison troops have already made it past Tianfei watchtower. The Shen clan's rebellion has failed to come to fruition and is now at a dead end. This old man advises all in attendance to wise up and surrender before it's too late. End chapter. Notes. 1 hour of U is 5 to 7 p.m. 2 hour of Zhou is 1 to 3 a.m.